to actually connect because I felt you for a long time. So I always figured we would. Katarina,
Yeah.
like, yeah, she seems glorious. So yeah.
Yeah, well, absolutely same. And I just, when I started to tune into your transmissions, I was just realizing how, how absolutely attuned and dialed in you are on a moment to moment basis. And it's so beautiful because to maintain that momentum is something that requires such a depth of devotion, and to be so open and expanded at the same time, and to just carry through the fullness of the codes that you do so consistently and so powerfully for so many people. It's beautiful and it's inspiring, and I so deeply appreciate you.
Wow, I feel so seen by that. Like, oh, you get it.
Yes. I totally get it. And I'm like, she's in it, and she's just showing up. She's showing up, and like the level of momentum and devotion that is there is astounding and so beautiful. So thank you for holding that so powerfully.
Oh, that means so much, especially from your sacred soul essence and energy. And thank you. My with all of this, with all these like really big assignments, there's been so many moments I'm like, I just fucking want to go hide on a mountain and be with the Ascended Masters. You know, I'm like, my human is like, I don't know. And, you know, it's like, and then breathing into like, okay, what do I have the divine will for? What is my sovereign energy for? And, you know, it's just, it's a beautiful process, but it is literally always living moment by moment. Yeah. And it is a deep devotional state to operate from that space, that sovereignty, because a lot of, I've done a couple shows where people are like, most people don't have a reference point of a leader who operates from sovereignty and spirit and operates from the feminine flow and just shifts and flows and creates from their essence and all these things. And it's because we, you know, obviously this is a beautiful gift we're receiving now of shifting back into that. So I appreciate that reflection so much. And obviously that you're living in that you can recognize it as well. So thank you, sister.
Yes. So I, you know, as we have this glorious conversation today, because I know it's going to be magical and profound in all the ways, I was tuning in beforehand, and I was, you know, trying to think of some questions to ask, and my guidance was to just literally be with what's fully present and alive right now. And so
totally,
I would love to just ask you, you know, what in the past couple of weeks, because so first of all, we went through this massive planetary shift where all of these energetics are literally being cleansed from the earth and from our genome, and we are receiving these new multidimensional light bodies, and these pristine cosmic codes are starting to anchor and take root. So what has your unique experience with that been over the past little while, and particularly the past couple of weeks? Because we did...
so much to share. And we can go anywhere. Like I operate the best out of moment by moment flow, because that's how I've attuned my system. So literally when people are like, what questions are this? I'm like, just, you know, whatever spirit has for us. Like it's easier for me to just go with. So whatever you want to ask me, we can go anywhere.
Yes.
And yeah, there's, I mean, this is why it feels like it's all showing up so much right now for us to speak into the awareness of what the truth and the reality of what we have available. So yeah, I'll go anywhere you feel called to go, my love.
Awesome. So yeah, so even in the past, today, let's just start with today. Like what, as you were doing your invocations and calling in the masters and all of this, what were you feeling? What types of new codes are coming in for you? I would love to hear as well, because we've been operating out of, you know, I mean, I feel like there was a space and place where we were all going through a massive group calibration where everybody was coming into the gnosis of self. But I feel like that is so anchored at this point. So it's kind of like I feel this collective urge and this question of, well, so what's next? Now that we know who we are, now that we know that we're the source, and all of this is happening on a collective global scale, what is actually next for us, and what is our next stage of evolution? So the codes that you've been receiving around all of this, I know you had mentioned some activations that we're starting to filter through.
And I feel like probably to create some groundwork to that, because yes, in a lot of aspects, what you're saying is so many of us are like, okay, we get it. We know what this is here for. We know who we are. We know we came here at this time for a reason. And that's like the truth and remembrance of that we're awakening to, is like everything happens in divine timing. This has always been a part of the plan. This is the gift we've been waiting for. We all literally fucking prepared ourselves to be here in this moment, to transition the new earth frequencies and the codes. Now, I also feel at the same time, a lot of people aren't there yet. There's still a collective, obviously we know like that each of us that stands at our highest light and our highest frequency, we can hold a field for up to so many people. It was when I worked with enlightened masters in India, where they literally were teaching me aspects of circulating my energy to expand the field. And it's like, it goes to 20,000 people, then you can hold it for 1 million people. And it's like, that's why there has been this, a lot of my journey has been knowing that I get to be a vessel for the planet. Now, my human stuff that comes up around that is like, why the fuck do I have to be a vessel for the planet when I'm cleansing and clearing and activating so many things? And so my personal experience of when this stuff started dropping, actually about a month and a half, and I haven't shared this other than like a tiny bit in my tribe when I did an open mic Q&A to help people with a lot of what was coming up. And we have that on one of my shows just so people can hear the alchemizing process of going from the depths of emotional alchemy, which emotional alchemy is the process of manifestation. And so I barely shared with them because I didn't really bring presence to it, because I live the way that I do, where I am very fucking clear and aware of where I put my energy, right? Where I put my focus and the power of my frequency and what I choose. And so literally it's like, I get to create a field around me of like, alchemizing things and moving through it. And I don't put attention energy to the matrix, right? Which a lot of people are putting attention to the matrix. So actually, love, you know, this is probably the first time I'll share this more in depth, is that about a month and a half before this whole thing even showed up, I had an intense staph infection show up on my body. At first I thought it was a spider bite, and I was like, what the? Then all of a sudden I had another one, and I was like, man, this spider really got me. You know, I'm used to being in the jungles, and I'm comfortable in all aspects in all places. And so I do, you know, the deep work in the jungles with sacred plants and all sorts of things. And I'm also just as comfortable in the Ritz. And so, anyways, this within a day, like all of a sudden I had like 50, 60 wounds pop up all over my body. These were like, if anyone's not familiar with staph, it's like a wound that opens up and just keeps spreading. And so it's like a deep wound. So literally all of a sudden I had all these wounds all over my body. And so I went through this intense staph infection that literally got deadly, like was, you know, on the verge of going to kill me. And so going through that glorious process, I was already self-secluded for about a month and a half before this whole thing happened, because I couldn't interact with anyone, you know, other than I found a beautiful genius, of course, so supported, that got to do IVs with me and vitamin C drips and NADs and peptide shots and all these things. And it still got to the point where it was deadly. It was just spreading. Like it was trying to annihilate my system. Wow. And he's like, this is intense. I've never seen anything like this. And so I got to go on antibiotics. And, you know, not usually that's something that I would do everything to not have to go down that route. Yet that was perfectly what I got to do. And even the antibiotics didn't work. The whole first phase of 10 days of antibiotics. So I got to do another round, which is what kept me from going back to be with my boys in the States when all this went down and all of a sudden the flights were closed off. So my point to this is, as I went through this whole healing process, I was totally, you know, self-secluded because I couldn't work out, because I couldn't spread it. I couldn't sweat. I couldn't swim. I couldn't, you know, shower. It was like, I just got to fully be in the presence of it and have like a nurse come twice a day and, you know, put stuff on my wounds. And in the process, even as I you know, met this guy that was assisting me with the IVs and all the things to rebuild my immunity. You know, he's like, oh my gosh, this thing is killing you, da da da. And I'm like, interesting. I'm like, okay, thank you. And a perfect experience for me to rebuild my system. So in everything, we have that opportunity. And so what, as I was in this process, I started communicating and getting a lot of new codes from the Syrians and the Pleiadians. They're like alchemizing, cleansing our system, completely cleansing my cells, alchemizing to, like, they came in and held me in these integration chambers to accelerate my healing and accelerate and recalibrate my system to be able to hold a higher frequency. And so then I went through this whole process, and then I did this journey day for myself to really recalibrate my system. And I had a communication with the staph infection. I was like, what? Because I still had these little spots, like even after it healed, I had little tiny spots popping up. They weren't evolving into wounds, but so I was like, what else is here? What else is here? What else is here that I get to really be with and see? And obviously, anytime any sickness comes up, it's a vibration out of alignment in your system. Mm-hmm. And so it's always just revealing dis-ease. Sickness is to be out of ease with life. And so again, it's like the deeper levels and depths we go. And for people that know my story, I healed myself of breast cancer. I had sicknesses and diseases from the time I was little, heart attack at 19, all sorts of things. because from the time I was little, I learned that the body was something that you fought. And so I literally was fighting my body, and I saw that from my dad passing away from diabetes, etc. And so these were deep programs in my system. And so when something comes up, it's not, oh, I must be out of alignment. It's like, oh, thank you. Like the next level of cleansing my system is ready to be revealed and healed and loved, that I can expand into an even greater capacity. So when I had this conversation with the staff, I was like, what, you know, like, why is it still showing up? Like, what else is here? And it said, like that. It was like, I am your gift. And it like literally had an attitude with me. It was like, like think that I'm anything other than a gift. It said, I was your gift. And the whole time I was in it, I kept getting the word annihilation. So I was thinking, this thing is trying to annihilate me. And even the guy had said that. He's like, man, this thing is really trying to annihilate you. And it said, I annihilated everything in your system and cleansed you out that you could operate at a higher frequency. And I was like, oh, thank you.
Yes.
Like,
wow.
So, I mean, I was in this, I felt, I mean, my experience, my journey has been so many times I get called to experience and embody these codes and these new, like what we're alchemizing on the planet right now is the depths of annihilation, control, victimization, blame, judgment, separation. So in about a year or so ago, it was about a year and a half, I had a lot of the ascended masters were telling me, hey, the new earth frequencies are coming in, and they're like, you guys will get to a point where you have a choice. You can either go continue like the dark ages to choose out of fear and focus on fear, and you can have the destruction of the planet, and you guys can all experience that as your perfect experience. Or the more of you that stand in the light and move towards light, we create the new earth. And so I already like had the awareness this was happening. And so when this, not knowing how it would happen, and then when this dropped in, and then all this stuff I experienced, and I was getting all these new recalibrations, all these new codes, I was like, oh, and I literally knew, okay, this will be something I get to share with people, having no idea that like a month later, how all this showed up, they were like, that's why we prepared you. You carry the codes. New earth fucking human. You know, this is like the new human for the new earth. And the interesting thing about it is my gene keys even reflect my main life's purpose is the future human. So I've always known I teach the patterns and behaviors of the future higher level conscious evolved species in the now. Yes. And it's like I got to receive those codes. So I think, or I feel like a lot of leaders had some crazy shit come up right before. I know a lot of amazing, beautiful spiritual teachers and leaders that were like, the most interesting, deep things showed up to begin to alchemize these processes and move through this. So for those of us that are still feeling this or experiencing this, this is because it is for us to transmute this. Yes. And to be able to then move into the new earth. Like this is the greatest gift. This is the great awakening. This is the great change that we have been asking for. And so for me, it lights up my soul, just as I mentioned to you, where there's a part of me that's like, like, can I do this? Can I hold this field a whole new level? And then I'm like, oh, this is my fucking next purpose. Like, this is what I was prepared for. This is, I was up there with all of you, and we were like, woo, we are going down there, and we're going to be a part of humanity. We're going to assist the planet in transitioning from the, you know, those scared parts of us to our greatest remembrance and light. And so that's where we're going, is to be able to, you know, so like you were asking me the questions about a lot of the new codes and a lot of things, it's to be able to have a physical 3D body that operates from a higher frequency and dimension. So like the Syrians, they're epic at working with the physical body. Yes. To be able to recode and recalibrate that you operate to hold a frequency of 6-dimensional consciousness and above. Yes. So we've just got all these beautiful light. They're like, we've been planning on this for a while. Chill out, guys. This is all part of the plan, you know? And so those are the things that I've been alchemizing for myself. So I think a lot of people can relate to that or get to be aware, this is so that we transmute this idea that we're going to be destroyed, and we recognize our sovereignty, as we spoke a little bit about before, which is coming into emotional sovereignty is spiritual sovereignty, and being able to allow ourselves to be create that liberation and that freedom.
Oh, that's such a stunning frame for sovereignty, emotional sovereignty. Emotion. Yeah. So I would love to delve into that more, but one of the things that I really love and appreciate about you so much is that you're so dialed in instantly to
there's no separation, right? Yeah.
It's like the highest dimensional perspective is accessed instantaneously. So instead of even going into entertaining any other possibility except that you are receiving a new divine human light body, you're just with it and you're on it and you see that, and you have trained yourself to look for the gold and really the truth even in what is actually unfolding. And
right.
it's just so, like, you're just like an arrow. You're just so you're just so focalized and pointed right in that direction, which is so stunning because, you know, even before I came into this experience, I actually remember being a spearhead on Sirius. And I remember so another star being came to me and vibrationally communicated that I was needed on Earth. And I remember just without any type of hesitation or anything, I just darted down here. And I remember on the way,
Of course you did.
I was just like, okay, this must be done. I'm going in. I can. And so what I actually felt, even in that state of knowing this, was I can endure anything temporarily. So I knew that I was opting into these lower dimensional frequencies in order to hold and calibrate the field for the new Earth on the planet at this time, just exactly as you're speaking into. And so many of us have opted into doing that. And it's such a glorious gift, the times that we are in now, because these pristine frequencies. So when I even attune into what our world, the systemic structures of our world are evolving into, it is so profoundly exquisite and beautiful and pristine at every single level. And so that's, you know, right now it literally is like this depth cleansing where we're all lovingly or not, I mean, it's always lovingly, but if some of us are choosing to surrender into that depth of beingness in which that deep regeneration and clarification can occur. And some of us are just, you know, we are either selecting it or it's being selected for us. I suppose that's the most precise way to say that. Yeah. And, you know, one of the things that I really deeply value about this time is the level of love that is being birthed through connection, that it's so, you know, there have been so many times in this journey where that has been my own personal greatest wish, is to just be here now at this precise exact moment in time.
Yeah, such a gift. Well, there's no other time. And so again, when we're operating from our sovereignty, when we're operating from our divinity, we're in the moment. And that's what that was something I said to myself over and over as I began to embody, was I choose to be here now. I choose to be here now, bringing myself back to the moment, living consciously to tune into my operational systems. What am I feeling? What's my heart doing? And saying, like, what's my frequency? And we're not used to operating that way, or a lot of us haven't learned to operate from our heart-centered consciousness, from where we get to go, where we are in the divine feminine flow, and our masculine is in balance through our inspired action. And it's such an effortless give and receive and create, because when we're in our heads and we're thinking it through, right, we're projecting into the future or the past. So that is the gift for us. I mean, and look at how it was so provided for us. I really see this as like, when I saw the vision of it, was, you know, in my communications with, a lot of the communication I do is with the higher realms. And it's like, they're like, I saw this as the perfect training ground for embodiment. And embodiment is I always say integrity is embodiment. To live in our fullest integrity of who we are is to be embodied. And so it's so different than the information. And as we've operated in a place where we've been distracted, avoidance, complacent, we've tolerated a lot of ways of being humans and humanity, and kind of, you know, turned our eye from what is not of the highest vibration. And when we're operating out of our highest connection and we awaken these, the DNA and the codes of our divinity, it's like you feel, that's why I feel like the veil's being lifted, and that people are feeling and connecting more, because we all we can understand each other better in this. We know everyone is dealing with this, versus like, oh, one part of the world, oh, there's some war across the world and I'm not there and it doesn't affect me. Oh, you know, if I throw the plastic away, then I don't see it floating in the ocean. When you live in third world countries and you go all over the world, you see the depths of all aspects of humanity. And we recognize that and so that's how we've been operating. And it's such a beautiful, beautiful sacred gift right now that literally everyone is, I mean, forced would be the way that most people would associate to it. And yes, the angels would be like, yeah, we're fucking forcing you guys to like go within. And yet we know that there's no such thing as force. We're always in choice yet. So it's like some people can still be in this experience and they can choose to distract and avoid and there's plenty of aspects to that. And more than ever is that people are like, wow, I gotta really, now I am forced to be with all of me, forced to be with what's here, and awakening to our divine, birthright, to the natural ways that we're meant to operate, and getting to heal and come to peace within, that we can actually be peace without. Because as we feel each other so much more intensely, what that allows us to come into attunement with is our DNA codes reactivated, where, I mean, this is something they shared with me years ago, and I always thought, wow, that's like the new earth. And I felt this, of like, this glory of the new earth is that because we know that we're all connected, we're all one. So it's like knowing and feeling what everyone else feels. Mm-hmm. When they are in bliss and happiness and joy, you feel it at the same degree.
Yeah.
Now, and same thing as if we feel the pain, the hurt of someone, we feel that. We wouldn't, if it's affecting us, we wouldn't want other people to be experiencing that. We can't turn a blind eye anymore. Right. And so it's like we feel the depths of our energetic connection, that we all are source, and we all are one. And so all we want is everyone to receive their heart's greatest desires, for everyone to be blissed out, and everyone to be taken care of and served and supported, and abundance to be, spread across the planet, because we have that. We have infinite abundance available. And as I've shared, on some Q&As, when people had a lot of fear come up around the economy and money, etc., I'm like, this is like, we have infinite abundance. We've had a distribution issue, not an abundance issue. We've had a distribution issue, the hoarding issue, and all those things. And I think that's why the States has experienced like a lack of toilet paper. There's those things happening where it's like there's the hoarding, and and so if we had that level of attunement to feel all beings, and feel that honor and that respect and adoration, and cherishing every single life, every bit of life, there would be no desire for us to have anything other than everyone being in their highest bliss and joy. Yes. And I'll share with you, this is probably shows a little bit more of the codes that are tapping in what I experienced even in the last month. Literally, animals are just, I already, over the last couple of years traveling the world, one of the things that I made as my main focus is that peace is always my priority. That's what I live by. That's like peace is always my priority. And so as I started to attune to this, of course, everything got to show up that I was not at peace with. Everything got to be, anything I had an attachment to got to just be shed away. And, identities, expectations, attachments, anything just destroyed and shed away. So I could be at peace in all experiences, with all beings, all places. Wherever we're uncomfortable is where it's our next access point to expand our capacity to become comfortable, where it's like, I have no issue there anymore. I'm totally at peace, and I can expand even bigger. I can receive even more joy. And so I remember a couple of years ago when I began my global citizen journey, as I was, called to let go. I don't know how much my story but it's like I got called to let go of the $1 million clients, the Magical Manifestation Mansion. My boys, we moved them to Utah for the first time. They were with me full time for 15 years. And so I remember my first place, and all of a sudden I had I'm in this little cottage in Portugal, and all these ants were crawling on the counter, and I was like, I found myself get frustrated and just brush the ants off. And I realized, whoa, all of a sudden I started to recognize, I'm like, where's the story that the ants shouldn't be on the counter? And where's the story that I could not be at peace with, they shouldn't be here? And I began to see even my actions towards every single thing that I wasn't at peace with. And so, I laugh at my experiences with massive spiders, where I was like, and then I'm like, oh, now I see them as spiritual transformation, an association that, and I'm like, hi, you're a big guy. What's your name? Frank? And I just become friends with them. So this has been my evolution. I'm kind of giving you a background to over the last couple of years, where literally a couple of weeks ago, as I was also receiving these codes, I had I'm known to jump into my pool outside to save a beetle now, and an ant, and fully clothed, my people beetle. And I also see that's a reference point for me, how we can look around and be like, destruction, I don't know what's gonna happen, and then next thing you know, something plucks out of the sky and just pulls you out and goes, here you go, my love. And it's we are the ants to all these cosmic beings that are supporting us. This is my experience. I haven't shared anywhere yet. And I had this glorious, I just got called out to the grass outside of, I have this beautiful jungle view with the river, and in my pool. And I was, I go out in the grass every single day, several times a day, just to ground into Mother Earth and to ground myself. And I happened to just walk by like where the little filter was. And I was like, oh, I saw these sticks and I decided to pull them out, which I normally wouldn't do. I like pool guy can do that. And all of a sudden when I pulled him out, I saw this grasshopper in there, like, and I was like, oh, I thought he was dead. I'm like, oh, buddy. Oh, and and then also I saw him move his leg and I was like, you're alive. And so I pull him out and he like shakes off and he starts doing his thing. And I began to telepathically communicate and feel this grasshopper. Like I felt his entire life story. Oh. I felt his soul. And it was one of the most beautiful experiences I've ever had in my life with this grasshopper. He literally cleans himself off and he starts, and I'm talking to him and I was like, you made it, you did it, you're okay. And he was like, he starts to dance for me and he starts coming towards me and he's dancing. And I was like, he was so happy and grateful that I pulled him out. And he kept coming towards, literally came inches away from my face. And so I'm like, wow, there's no separation here. He didn't like run off. So I put up my hand. I'm like, what can I do for you? He climbs up halfway on my hand and he just stares into my eyes. And I literally, really close to a grasshopper, has like big, beautiful, translucent eyes. And we just sat there and had a conversation telepathically. And then he climbs up on my hand and I notice he's got one leg missing, the other one broken. And I just felt the depths of his soul and I felt his life's journey. And I just was like, thank you for being here. Thank you for all that you've added. Thank you for your wisdom. I was like in love with this grasshopper.
He was absolutely in love with you too. It
was amazing. And so I'm like, what can I do for you? Because I'm like looking at him going, I think he's crippled and literally he can't go anywhere. And I'm like, where can I take you? Where can I put you so you'll be okay? And I'm like, walk over and I'm like, where do you want me to take you? Because I have like glass, kind of like a glass separation thing. And then it's just the drop off to the jungle. And I'm like, where do I put you? And it's like, he just looks at me and he dances again. Like, and then all of a sudden he just leaps off my hand and flies. And it was like, I was like, ah, as he flies out of my hand. And I was just like, I started to bawl. I'm like, I thought this, soul of this grasshopper was crippled and he just flew off. And then since then I had a bird, walk up to me one day and just climb up in my hand, a bird. And I'm just like, I'm starting to transmute again, that there's no separation. Mm-hmm. There is only the codes of inclusion. There's only the codes of, love is the inclusion of all things, not the exclusion. And so these are some of the codes we get to embody where if I can be at peace with all animals, I mean, we know where, with animals, before we went through the fall and forgot of what we have, we just communicated telepathically in energy. Like lions used to pull the chariots of the sons of God and the different, high level beings that came to bring the codes to the planet. It's like, but they communicated out of energy. Well, when we had these, coming from building into the ego space, we actually lost that ability. And so hence animals are in the wild and they're not a part of living in the man experience. And we have this fear and this separation from all things. So when the new earth that I see is like, literally like, there is so much abundance. More than we even have a reference point for at this point, like that we can't imagine. There's so much bliss, there's so much joy, there's so much service and love and just the greatest blessings and blessings that we could ever have. And we see the magic and miracles and abundance in everywhere and everything. And we de-story even that abundance comes from only certain places. We actually recognize that we're fully supported by the universe always. Yeah. So those are some of the codes that have dropped in for me through alchemizing this and coming to like, yes, like the new codes of the new human and what's really possible as we connect fully to each other and all of Gaia, Pachamama, as all of the plants and the animals, just literally every single being on earth, there is no separation.
Yes. And one of the glorious insights that came through and you're sharing that too is wholeness, that he showed you his wholeness and his, oh, it was so good. He's like, I am a perfect and whole and complete creator God. And, because I just feel the richness and the fertility and the prolific nature of all that you're speaking into that is all here now, that has always been here now. And I deeply celebrate you for selecting that timeline. This is something that I reference as the field of superabundance, where it's all that we see is what is real and what is true and what is alive. And we're perceiving ourselves and one another and our perfection and our wholeness and our total sum unification of all that we are infinitely as the divine I am presence. And we're having these rich dialogues and communications on a moment-to-moment basis with all that is, with the perceptually inanimate objects in our environment that just are pure vitalized, activated consciousness, with the plants, with the animals, with everything. And all that actually is abundance. Nothing else exists. Everything is an
everything is
emanation.
love. Everything, you got it, girl. Yeah. And I mean, so imagine taking that to another degree of where someone can see themselves so fully out of their own wholeness, only unconditional, radical self-acceptance, unconditional compassion, unconditional love. And we know we can only give it to others when we are fully able to be with that within ourselves.
Yes.
That's why we can only hold the field of being with so many emotions or ways of being, again, when we've allowed ourselves to be with that within ourselves. So we know, again, that anything that we are in separation with or any resistance to and triggered by, etc., it's an aspect of ourselves we haven't owned and loved and healed. Hence, that's why it's showing up in our field that we get to do that. And that's why all this stuff is coming up. I believe right now, everything coming up for every single person is being called to this. I definitely have all my own stuff too. Like, we're all being called to shed and cleanse and clear what is not in harmony, what is not in balance with life, and what is ready to be healed and revealed, that we can become completely at peace. As you said, that it's like, can you imagine like there not being a story anymore of what you should look like and like what you should show up like and what other people think like? It's like in a highly evolved species of consciousness, that's like, why would I ever have a thought like that? Why would I ever create my own suffering or anyone else's? Because that's only going to hurt me. So that's where we're going, and that's what we get to start to, I believe. So what I, in my communication with them is like why I was given this assignment, about the Peace for the Planet, the group that I'm doing, where we'll do these live activations. But they were like, it's so much more than when people come together and you do breath work or you do an activation. You move energy, and you can attune to recalibrating. Just like if you work with plants and, sacred plant medicines or other things, there's a lot of modalities to cleanse and clear the cells, clear trauma out of your system, activate DNA. And people, if they haven't learned to integrate it and embody it into their being and their way of operating, all you do is you recreate the same shit, because you go back to your 95% of everything that you do. 95% of what you're doing is memorized. At least 95% of what you're doing is memorized. If you're living unconsciously. If you're living out of like the memorized patterns and the memorized thoughts that happen as you get up every day, and so it's like you wake up and you recode in your, I'm this person, and this has been my experience, and this has been my past, and this is who I am, and this is my environment, and you re-chemically wire yourself. And so it's like, you go first thing to the bathroom or to the kitchen, and the things that you do, you have the same thoughts. And so we're operating out of not living presently. And so as we get to shift and cleanse and clear all that, we're really coming into attunement of, what they told me is, it's like we get to implement the new laws of spirituality, like the new laws of consciousness, and learn how to integrate those as the new behaviors that we operate from, the new thought process that we operate from, that we are totally sovereign in what we choose to see, what we choose to think, what we choose to speak, what we choose to feel. Yes. And so all of our operating systems are in the highest level of alignment. And so it's not just, one, that's why they're like, my assignment is going through these codes of activation to cleanse and clear the systems and recalibrate the system, and offer the embodiment tools, and offer the laws of spirituality, and offer the integration. Like, I was like, wow, this is a big assignment, and awesome. I get to,
yes.
And that feels like where we're also going in like business, entrepreneurial, our entrepreneurial nature, all the ways that we share and serve. What I've been feeling is that we just get to fucking give it all and serve it all, like there's the things that it was like, I work with $1 million clients, or I work with high level this. It's like everyone, now what we're being called to do is everyone receives it all. Yes. And I feel, or my truth, at least in what I've experienced in the last couple of years, as I went from, getting that next level of freedom and liberation, was to free myself completely of all identities and attachments to anything, and go on the journey I have to embody these codes, was calling me to, I had an experience in India where it was like, I just felt the depth of like, how many more people can I serve? And it was like, that's all that mattered. How many more people can I serve? And I know if I'm in service, I'm always provided for. Because when I'm in my highest dharma and I'm in my highest passion, again, I'm giving, whatever I give it, it draws back. And so it's also like, receiving money is just like breathing air, that it's always perfectly received, and we always perfectly give and we share. And that's where I feel like we're all being called to go, where again, there's like, oh, I give my service and I'm always supported and I receive from all these aspects and beings. It's like, that's fucking glorious.
So that's a stunning, well, what's coming through around all of that in particular, because we are all being called into this space of pure service in every single moment where we are to all that is within and before us, and to actually hold the field, to hold the I am presence, and to hold that level of integral capacity in our system, in our light body, we must be of constant service. There's not actually any other choice. It's just this pure, for that generative power to even be sustained in the light body, its only natural function is to give and to love and to flourish and to pour out from its filled well and vessel. And for us to actually be sustained and filled, that must happen.
Beautiful clarity, because it does get to be, it's not service out of I'm suffering or sacrificing myself. It's like, I'm being so fulfilled. And that's why it's like from my fulfillment, it's outpouring that it feels so good to serve and to share these things that are my greatest gifts that get to come through. And that's the other thing everyone's awakening to is really getting to awaken to their gifts and the capabilities that they have. You know, I love bridging the gap between the holy human messiness and all the aspects of ourselves that is glorious as holy humans and in our beautiful human journey, and all of our multidimensional gifts and capabilities and all that we are. And so it's like, there's so much that we get to access. Again, I feel like this is relevant in just even the thoughts and the things that will come up as people are transmuting fear to love, which is our opportunity right now, is to transmit all things that are of a lower vibrational density to a higher vibrational frequency. And, you know, when all this first started showing up, it was like, I was thinking, guys, this is fucking easy. This is awesome. Like, we just all get to go inward and we get to have this space. And I had this thought in the back of my head. It was like, oh, what would be really hard would be if, you know, internet goes down and cause I was raised in extreme fear mentality. It was always the world is going to end. My whole life, it was the world was going to end. Like, you know, you can't even go. It was like, if you go to the grocery store, you know, like, and you come out to your car, someone's going to be hiding under your car and they're going to slit your ankles or be hiding in the back seat. Like, I was raised in very much a fear mentality, and the world was always going to end. And so from the time I was little, it was like, yeah, you know, something's going to happen and they're going to take out the roads and there'll be no internet and connection. And I had this, so I was actually out on a walk one morning here, and I was communicating or talking with my mom, and she happened to bring up, you know, if, you know, the internet goes down, and I noticed it triggered me. It triggered a fear in me that, like, all of a sudden, and I was like, recognized that all of a sudden it made me feel the fear of out of control. And what came up was like, well, I'd lose my boys. I wouldn't be able to connect to them. I wouldn't be able to see how they are. I'd have no idea. And all this fear came up in my body, and I was like, whoa, thank you. And it just got to reveal these deep rooted things from the time I was little to really recognize and break down. And as I got to be with that, and I looked at how it brought up a lot of fear of, like, you know, not knowing how, I'm like, well, I'm, you know, traveling the world and I'm on the other side of the world, and all these, like, by myself alone, going to be a lot of stuff I alchemized on my journey of what started as my journey of aloneness became my journey with myself as I got called to a global citizen journey to alchemize a lot of these things. So this was just bringing up a deep layer that was ready to be revealed. And as I broke it down, love, this is what was so cool. I was like, I began to see it as I was even communicating with angels. It was like, well, I was like, okay, so, you know, of course, all systems are being destroyed. All systems that have everything gets to come back to integrity. We get to align and come into our sovereignty, self-governing ourselves and our wholeness, that all systems get to be cleansed. So it would make sense if the internet goes down and, like, there's no communication. We get to start from a ground of, like, you know, instead of, and you know, all the things they say, like, oh, you've got cameras in your phone and on this app and on that and da-da-da-da. It's like, so there's shadow frequencies that have been built into a lot of our systems. And so I was like, oh, that would just be a gift. We just get to cleanse and start over. And then I was like, all right, so then looking at each fear, it was like, what's the next thing? It was like, I'd lose my voice. I was like, is that really true? Like, not having a connection with my voice. And all of a sudden I was given the remembrance of an experience where I took my boys down to the jungles in Colombia after one of my events where I did, you know, deep sacred sacrament work with, you know, some of the high level leaders and people that I work with. And then my boys came down and we traveled all over Colombia. And then we went to the jungle, the three of us, me and my two boys, and they were 9 and 12 at the time. And we did ayahuasca, me and my two boys. And Gavin was 9 and Skylar was 12. And I was taken back to the remembrance of, they were done with their experience. I was still fully in it. Like, mama, grandma wants to work with me deeply. So abuelita was still working with me. And I remember I was in my experience, and all of a sudden I was like, I came to my human self and I was like, oh, where's my boys? And I just like wanted to know where my boys were. And I also accessed seeing them. I saw them up where they were safely, you know, they were out of the sacred grounds. They were up in the kitchen. They were eating. They were being totally taken care of by the Colombian family. It's like my family down there. They were being fed. And I literally saw the scene. I saw everything they were saying to each other. I saw what they were eating. I heard the whole conversation. I was like, okay, they're good. And I just went back into my experience. A couple hours later, all of a sudden, like, where's my boys? And it's like, and all of a sudden I saw them. I saw them in our little like hut, like our little house thing. And they were, you know, laughing and talking, and I heard their exact conversation, saw everything. Yes. Later, as I came out of my experience, and they're in the kitchen with me, and I'm getting some food and whatnot. And, you know, I asked them about their experience, and they were like, duh, duh, duh. I'm like, oh yeah, I know. And they're like, how do you know? I'm like, well, you were sitting here, you said this, and you said that, you were eating that, da, da, da. And I shared with them the whole scene, and they just mouths dropped. They're like, no. Are you psychic? And at the time, I didn't even recognize that I was, of course, yes, we all have these psychic capabilities that we awaken and open. I was like, no, I just tapped into the quantum field of energy, and I was able to see what was happening. Mm-hmm. And so I was given this remembrance of this experience, and I was like, oh, that's right. If that happens, I would just get to open up my telepathic communication abilities and my psychic abilities. I could literally communicate with them instantaneously versus like trying to call them, and half the time I catch my Sky, you know, he's like, half the time I catch him, half the time I don't, you know, it's like, I was like, oh, it would just even be greater. So it's just like when people transition from this life, what we call death, and they transition, and I've assisted a lot of people in realizing you can connect to them anytime. This is fucking easy now. You know, it's like, do. So also I saw how we're actually, no matter what happens, we are just being gifted the opportunity to awaken our dormant DNA, awaken our capabilities, awaken the full remembrance of all access that we have, versus when we've been in this box of operating only from what we knew, there was no access point. There was no, you know, place for us to go into that remembrance and that discovery. And it's just like anytime we experience resistance, we know that receiving is on the other side. And it's only when like, oh, okay, it's not, okay, what else do I create? How else can this look? And we dance and flow like the feminine in our divine nature, that we then go, whoa, I found this. Oh my gosh, I love this. And I would have never known that this was here. You know? Yes. So I was like, oh, so I got to alchemize those fears within me. They were just wanting to be my little girl inside, wanting to know what the possibilities were and see it all. I was like, you know, and I trust the process of life. No matter what happens, I always am supported. I will always find a way to have a roof over my head, and I'll always find food. And, you know, I just trust that of course it's for our greatest, highest good. And then it's like that, it was a whole nother layer of like, like freedom. So, yes. I mean, that's what I've seen and witnessed. That's my own personal experience, which can sound a little extremely woo-woo cray-cray for people, but that's where we're going, is we have access to, there is no separation. There's just full infinite possibilities. Absolutely. And even to get into the micro of that as well, is determining what actually happens on the global stage, determining what the greater creative landscape unfolds as, what it looks like via our perceptual awareness and deciding. So in those moments too, when that fear arises, so these are things that I notice within my own being, I get to see the micro perceptions where I am giving my power over away to any kind of a storyline, instead of going, actually, what would be marvelous is, and then selecting and coding it into the field, and finding the highest dimensional timeline, and gifting that to all of us, as you're saying, because those are opportunities too, to take those shadow elements that are existing in some of those places and spaces, and alchemize them through the light into their highest dimensional expression in that moment. And then it just reorients the entire quantum field, and we all start to experience a new internet. So those things don't even exist in coming from a place of control, right? Like, oh, I need that thing. It's like, no, actually we tap into, I love that you brought forth timelines, because we do have the ability to timeline hop into any reality. That is the power of coding. You know, a lot of people are like, what do you mean by codes? It's like literally like we're we're bringing forth the like you said, the alchemy of shifting the whole system, that now we're in that timeline. And I believe, as you said, that the more of us that are actually doing that, it shifts the timeline for the field. And that's why part of this assignment I had was the more of us at once that can be a part of these activations that we're recoding, and then we're putting that into the field, the more frequency shifts happen, and the more like, cool, we're there. We step into our new earth. And then we also get to embody and integrate and hold those fields of frequency and continue to up level, that other people can, it's like in Yurtel was the angel that taught me so much about emotional alchemy. And I code in every single thing that we write, every message, every post, everything we write, everything we speak, every message we give, I code in that it has the frequency of divine unconditional love. And I literally speak into the field that it's divine unconditional love, unconditional acceptance and compassion, that with anyone that reads it or experiences it, that their heart can be opened up like a warm bonfire, that they feel this frequency call, this remembrance of their divinity and love, that then they are called forth to step forward in whatever way for their life's journey, for them to, move towards more of that feeling as their reference point, as their way of being. And I don't know how many times I've received messages from people, or people have messaged or commented on our stuff where it's like, we anything that we share, and they're like, I felt the frequency of that. I felt a shift just reading that or seeing that, etc. I'm like, yep, it's working. So it's like that's we have the ability to code in the experience that we want, to code in our there's so much available to us that we all get to be able to have as access points.
It's so absolutely stunning. And it's all, it's interesting because actually as this all started to unfold, I was having the stark opposite experience of what so much of the collective was going through. So that was interesting, and that pulled up a lot within me for me to look at and work through. But I was in such an illuminated, it's so far even beyond words. It's the place in space where everything it's always been the new earth. Nothing else exists. No other memory.
Yes.
No other codes. And I'm just in the unified field of light here in this body. And I'm just observing the storylines, and even into the realm of, from this point, what is purpose and what is, and going through and asking those questions and just marinating in the total bliss of that experience. But then what it drew up within me was, how do I actually show up now with sensitivity to all that everybody else is going through and experiencing and calibrating to? And I'm here dropped into the depth of this fully illumined bliss field, and I'm seeing that there's no more work to be done. Everything is full, everything is whole, everything is complete. We are all already here in our wholeness and our perfection and absolute total connection to our sovereign divine I am presence, and with all that is in all moments. And we are living in this divine feminine flow, as you're speaking into, from moment to moment to moment. And so I had to step back, I had to lean back. And actually, even in the leaning back, because my guidance was to fully, so there's a whole new wave of coding that's coming. And so one of my greatest prayers is I'm in the quantum field, and I'm calibrating the quantum avatar of being. So it's like, we are the new divine human codes and receiving the future human codes. And then it's also calibrating the quantum avatar, the infinite self, because we are all, as you said, we are the ants to the cosmic beings. We're all part of a larger organic ecosystem of beingness. And so going into that mainframe and calibrating the quantum infinite avatar and going, okay, so what do you need right now? What does the larger organism of beingness need? And going in and harmonizing and purifying and going into the depth of cellular structures and coding within the larger landscape itself. And then also going into deep space to do all of that harmonization work. And so it has just been about dropping. I've been called to really lean back a whole lot during this time, and be with that, and then look at what, because I'm just, and as are you, and as are we all, the frequencies that are coming in are so refined, and they're so ultrasonic, and they're so pristine, and the body must have this space and the functionality to fully receive and integrate these codes. And so my heart has been with how do we support as many people as possible with opening to receive these codes, and then coming to peace with the knowingness that there are going to be those beings who don't select it, which is kind of what we're seeing happening on a collective scale right now. The systems that are able to fully receive the coding, and the systems that aren't taking it. And one of the things that you had mentioned was the timeline around when we bring fully forward the new codes and the new activations, when people's systems are calibrated to receive them fully. And then even in the context of that, I ask myself, why don't I frame it so that everybody is actually able to receive them?
Well, you're speaking a new language.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, this is something that as a leader, and again, we lead by leading ourselves first. And so obviously for you to have the language that you do, and the understanding that you do, and the alignment that you do, just as we first started this conversation, and you gave me such beautiful reflections of your experience of me, I was like, oh, you see me, sister, and you get it because you're living in the same alignment. And, there's been countless times through my experience where, so many people say you should just numb it down, right? Like to what everyone can receive. And I continue to receive the intuition and that says, this is how you bring in the new frequency. This is how you bring in the new language. This is how, so yes, there's, again, the people that don't draw to that, or they're like, yeah, that's just, I don't understand. There's someone else that's speaking the language that they can take that next step forward. And so when I began speaking, it was like years ago that I was called forth to start speaking about plant medicines and sacred sacraments. And it was like, no one was talking about it online. It was like very like, like hush, hush, don't do that. And I was like, hey, someone's got to start speaking about it. And I was called to do it. And so I'm like, I just get to start speaking this language. And even as I started speaking coding and all these things, it was like, when we begin to awaken that remembrance of these aspects of ourselves, as you're talking about being able to work in the quantum field and do all these things, and we're sharing these, like, whoa, there's like people like, whoa, there's a reference point for that. I actually can see the possibility of that existing. And then it becomes a new norm for people that they can step into, whether they're ready for it now or not. It is creating those seeds, and it is putting that out there. So even recently I've had that come up where I was like, hey, I'm speaking a new language, and it's time for a new language to be birthed. Again, just like these new codes and these new experiences that we're having. And I so appreciate, like, I honor your journey, and I appreciate the awareness that you have and the depth you have, and even sharing your experience with this, because I've had, I've had so many people that are like, I'm blissed out, and I'm just expressing more than ever, and I'm, creating more than ever. And they feel like, wow, this space is just giving them such a gift. And I've had friends again who are like, I'm not experiencing this, that the collective is experiencing. And then they're feeling the same thing. They're like, oh, am I just not compassionate? I know along my journey, I've had several times where it's like, I don't relate to what it's like to be a normal human anymore at many points. And so it's like, knowing that we don't, it's like Jesus or any guru or ascended master, enlightened being, they don't buy into the story because they know someone's just acting out that aspect of self. Yes. They see them out of their divinity. So, we can bring, again, then we get to look at any judgments or thoughts that come up in the humanness to be like, oh, wait, why am I not experiencing this way? And there's depths of this too, where we allow people to actually feel. I've experienced a lot of leaders feeling just the slightest bits of agitation or restlessness, or, and can really tune and go, whoa, I'm feeling, I'm tapping into the things in the frequency and the environments, and how we get to fully allow ourselves, as you mentioned, how do we heal for the planet? So though you as a leader are like, you know what, I feel awesome. And I'm totally like, I'm holding my light body. The new earth is here. I'm in those codes. I'm doing the work. I'm doing my thing. And you're holding that field. And then we also can, as those beings, know that then we have the capacity to sit and be with and allow those depths of feeling to actually move through us, to go like, whoa, what is in the collective that I can alchemize this, and I can transcend this, and I can move this, and I can support people with how to embody those new frequencies. That's why we gave out my joy training. We've had the training that I have called Living in 100% Joy Now. We just gave it out for free because it's like giving these people these codes of how do I choose to be here in this moment now? How do I choose to see what is my how can I be in the highest bliss and joy in whatever I'm experiencing and whatever I'm choosing, because that is alchemizing it. And a part of that is we get to fully feel all that we're feeling. So I honor you for like all the ranges that you can hold and the capacity, and that even in that space where you're feeling like so divinely lit in the truth of who you are, you're like, and how do I tap into what the healing is required for people right now? And a lot of times it means you just stand in the fucking light and lead in the fucking light, and you are here to anchor in the light, as I believe many of us are here to anchor in the light. And then there's a lot of light leaders and aspects that are like so focused on the matrix, and I choose to not necessarily focus on the matrix, because then it's like I'm getting trapped in the matrix and we're just putting focus on the matrix. I choose to be like, all right, and how are we creating the new earth? How are we bringing forth this new level of ways that we are being human in our interactions and our consciousness, and integrating and embodying these things? That's where we get to, transmute everything to love. So it's all beautiful and divine. And I think your experiences, a lot of people can relate to that, because I know I've had a lot of friends that are leaders that have had the same experience. They're like, am I bad and wrong? That it's like, no, it's all your perfect experience. So I think you're just holding those fields of light. So I honor you for that, my sister.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, one of the massive codes that has been coming through as well is just that this is literally the atonement, and to break that word down, it is at one with. So we're actually all learning how to be fully, as you said earlier, being at peace with everything that's happening in our experience, to be at one with what is occurring in our here and now. So there's we go through our unique calibrations with receiving different layers of our oversoul blueprint and merging with our multidimensional light body. And so does our infinite quantum self. And it is also constantly receiving. And so we're going through this massive, our infinite self is receiving its next layer of its light body. And so there's a deep convergence and a fusion that's happening at just an epic, immeasurable scale right now. And just seeing that and feeling that and being with that and knowing, as we go through our own unique calibrations, as you said, if some type of disharmony arises in the physical vessel, it's like, thank you so much, because a much greater harmony is about to be integrated and opened into. And I'm stoked to see what that is. And especially if we can relate that, if we can place it side by side by whatever the depth of the clearing is for us, or the cleansing or the harmonization that's happening at a visceral level. And we can look at something profound must be opening up on the other side of this. And so we're going through this massive collective atonement where we're literally being given this invitation to be at one fully with all these dimensional aspects of ourselves, to integrate them, to harmonize them, to alchemize them, and to step into the fullness of illumined beingness, and to really truly realize infinite potentials and possibilities. I mean, that's, and when I feel into the evolved human species, that is what we are: explorers, we are discoverers, we are creators, we are designers, we are constant
artists, for all the things, right? Yes.
And we're just in that space with one another, playing on Playground Earth, and that's what, we're all stepping into this space together. And it's so, as you said, and I feel you so deeply, and sometimes it's just not the fullness of the words, but just creation awake, the creative landscape in full bloom, in that abundance that you're speaking into. And it's so rich and decadent and filled with life and vibrancy and love and connection. And the mystery, when we pierce into the realms of reality, we start to see the layers beyond the layer. And we're literally navigating our experience, and we're experiencing the multidimensionality of that in all moments with such wonder and such awe, and just so attuned to the beauty that is everywhere and in all things. And we're really, that's what we're stepping into as a collective, is living from these spaces constantly and naturally. It's like,
as your divine natural state, it is our birthright. That is our divinity. That is how we're meant to operate. And we came here in pure awe and wonder. And you put it so beautifully, sister. So glorious. Yes. Aho.
I'm so excited for us, and just holding that and amplifying that and being with it, and knowing that that's exactly what we are all stepping into, and it is so good.
And we can be it now. As you said, there's no separation from the new earth when we're being those codes now. And as you speak to it, as you exemplify that, as you be that frequency, that is how other people we're holding the field of that frequency, and we're allowing it to spread forth. So it's like, there's nothing for us to receive outside of us. It's already here now. And this is why in this moment now, we can choose it. We can literally choose this as our greatest gift, our greatest awakening, what we all chose to be here for, you know, and how do we experience every single moment out of divine unconditional love, unconditional radical acceptance, absolute compassion, like, and everyone is being, you know, able to look at how can I serve at greater degrees? How can I express myself in greater ways? What are all the gifts and capabilities that are uniquely mine and my angelic blueprint and codes? And so it is just I mean, that's what I see. And that's why it is so exciting. It's so exciting that when we catch ourselves out of harmonization with that, it's like, oh, what's coming up that I'm creating my own suffering, or, you know, and we get to be with all these things because this is what's being cleansed so that we can create new systems. So all this comes too, so we can totally be with ourselves, not at peace with all things or any situations. And, you know, if we find blame coming up, or, you know, like I said, a lot of things that we're alchemizing in the field of control or victimization or blame or judgment or separation, or these things, it's like, wow, how am I not able to be fully with me? And I'm taking radical responsibility and sovereignty into what I'm experiencing right now, that allows me to know that I am actually, this is what's available and what's happening here. And so, you know, when we step outside, I mean, I was on the phone with my mom the other day, and her, my dad passed when I was 15 and she got remarried. And her beautiful beloved, that is my stepdad, he always listens to the news, like constantly, or like has the news on, I guess. Like, and she says, oh, it's how he feels like he's keeping us safe. And I called her, and she happened to just, oh, hang on one second. And I could hear in the background the news. 30 seconds of that. I got 30 seconds of it. And when she got on, I was like, whoa, I couldn't even imagine that being in my field. You know, I was like, wow, that was heavy, you know? And I was like, I just heard through her phone 30 seconds of what they were saying. And I was like, holy shit, you know? No wonder, right? Like let's create sovereignty to like turn off the things that are not in the highest alignment, and allow ourselves to come to what is our truth, come to what is our divine right, and our, you know, for our greatest, highest good. So, you know, I think by you continuing to be, I feel, you know, sometimes I still catch that old language coming out of like think, or no, I feel, we're feeling bodies. I feel that as we continue to be this, and more of us can hear these reference points and these new ways of operating, that is how we truly get to accept it right now. So.
You know, I have the funniest story for you. Well, just to keep it short and sweet, I actually was placed in an environment because the travel has been, and so I'm liberated now to travel again, but because the travel was stopped, I was literally dropped into an environment where that was happening, where the news was playing continuously, and so I was like, oh, this is great.
Teaches you a whole new level of like, okay, and I like totally am still holding my sovereignty in the field.
Bliss bombs or Matul. They're Matul. I'm going to throw a bliss bomb on it. I am literally going to transmute it. I'm going to throw a bliss bomb on it. I'm going to like literally saturate it in so much light, and to stay in my power, and to stay in my sovereignty with all of it. And I'm like, I'm just repatterning and recoding through the waves of that. Yes, it is. So it was so fun, because that's probably where my own biggest resistance point was, because, you know, my gene keys are so focalized around reverence and honor and virtue and all of this. And to me, it's so my being naturally wants to separate from those things that don't carry that highest dimensional frequency. And I got to actually just be so fully with it and saturate it.
Yes. And that's what you can start to do as an alchemizing process. I know that's how I learned to become at peace with all things, was again, like, no matter what was in my environment, catch whatever story or judgment or wanting to separate, because any separation, any resistance energy towards anything is blocking manifestation. Because it is a shame, blame energy. It's like, oh, I don't want to be a part of that. So I know, like, there's times, I remember back in the day when I would be, you know, in the States or whatever, and like in like a gym, and you know how they have TVs or things going on. And I would just like, if I'd hear the negative stories, because like 99% of it is negative, or, you know, what we could label as negative when we use a label, obviously all things are perfect and divine. I remember I'd hear him and I would feel the frequency of that. And then I would just, again, transmute it. I was like, I'm blessing them. I see them out of love and light. I send that situation healing. And I would like literally like be playing these games in my head and my heart where I'm like, just like we use the word bliss bomb, like bliss bombing the story and the experience and seeing those people and their, you know, what we put attention to is these horrible things we know are our greatest access points to our liberation and the remembrance of all aspects of us. And it's like that's in our dualistic reality that gets to exist so that we can harmonize to these things. So it's like seeing it for what it is. Yeah. And people can begin to take this experience and see it for what it is and feel it for what it is and give unconditional love and compassion to all beings experiencing all aspects of it. And choosing, again, this is the part of holding yourself in the highest field of sovereignty, is we don't separate from it, because then we're just doing the same thing. We're like, oh, you're bad and wrong. That's not actually, the alchemization of unconditional love. It's conditional love, which is what we've been programmed into, which is like, love is a condition. You have to show up this way for me. There's an attachment, expectation, a transaction for me to approve of you, to accept you, to like you, and vice versa. And so it's the same thing on a spiritual bypassing level of what we say, oh, I'm a high being. I'm not going to associate over there. And that is actually to separate ourselves. And so it's actually to come into the depths. That's why our call is to be with all beings in love and light, to see all situations and all experiences out of love and light, to literally know that we are all those things. And if you can't be with that as you were, you could be with those, that experience in those things. And instead of separating, you could fully embrace it and not let it take you out of power. That is the journey for us, is that we don't have an attachment or expectation of others or anything. That is to be in our full sovereignty. That's the emotional sovereignty I was speaking to, where it's like in our emotional sovereignty, we are emotionally free. We are embodied, we are integrated. So we learn how to consciously be human by aligning to all of our capabilities and holding that field of our sovereignty.
Like that's it. That's where our depth power is, and our fulfillment, in that it's just so solid, where it becomes fully solid in every single moment, to be with that space of pure unconditional love for all beings in all moments, and to know that we have that power, and to know how fully divine we are, and that we can infuse everything with that. That's where our power is, in the merging and not in the separation. And it's so fascinating.
Go ahead, babe.
Oh, I was just going to say, it's interesting, because the natural impulse of the old brain, the old mind, and that's another thing that I see unfolding in this time now, is we're actually developing an omni mind. So the left and the right hemispheres of the brain are beginning to wire and fire together, so that we have a unified intelligence that allows us to live from that unified perception constantly. So we're transcending the fight or flight response and all of those mechanisms in the brainstem. And so when we are living in that field, when we're in fight or flight, it can be a natural thing to go, oh, I want to go over here. I want to get to safety. I want to separate. But the safety is actually in the full merging with the thing and bringing love to it, which allows us to access and literally activate the potential in our DNA when we do that. So when we embrace it, I love to go to, from the tantric perspective, to make love to it, to the thing that we want to separate from. Make love to it instead, and access just unearth well springs of your own power through that practice alone.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And I feel like there's ways that people can bring that into ways of hence doing, which is really being, new ways of being. And, because in our languaging, and sometimes some people are like, how do I do that? How do I align to where you're at? Where it's like, I'm operating from this highest state of knowing and consciousness and truth and all that I am. And I'm infusing everything with love and light. And they're like, how do I do that? And we can bring it down to, as you said, like make love to something. It's to even bring it into the energy of appreciation. Because appreciation is actually the energy of abundance. Appreciation is to be fulfilled and satisfied. So when we look at like any, if someone catches that there's a separation in any single way, like you might catch it like like I heard the news and was like, whoa, that's heavy. And then I got to just express to my mom love that she was so supported in that space. And she was like, yeah, he listens to the news because it makes him feel safe, that he knows everything that's going on. And so I gave him love and her love. And it's, so, when people can go, okay, wait, oh, I noticed I had a judgment about a person, or I, was comparing myself to someone, and then also to go, oh, like what's really true is like I'm seeing that the aspect of me that doesn't feel like I'm enough, or that it should look that way, and we can heal and alchemize that, and then we can go, I'm so fucking grateful for that person standing in their light and being in their divine unique gifts, and wow, I'm so grateful for the example of that and all that they're sharing for the world, and can I see that they're spreading so much light for the world. It's not meant to be that I'm operating like them, and we come to clarity of like the truth of like, oh, I can now see this, and then what's the action we can take to do that. It's like today I was inspired to just send out mass appreciation messages just for no reason at all. I was like sitting out in the grass and I was, did my own processes and started dancing and doing my thing. And I just felt like, okay, how I can spread this feeling. And also I just went through and sent everyone I basically had on my WhatsApp, like, individualized messages of just love and appreciation. Everyone's like, wow, like where'd that come from? I'm like, out of love. I just love you. And it's like, we can put that. That's how we infuse it into the field. So it's like, I sing silly songs all the time. It's how I learned to transmute my experiences. As I was learning that all things were perfect and trusting the divine and trusting the process of life, I would use these statements, like something would show me like, oh, it's perfect. And I remind myself that whatever I'm experiencing is perfect. I'm perfectly experiencing shit. I'm perfectly experiencing sadness. I'm perfectly experiencing everything I'm experiencing. And I would say interesting, to remind myself to get curious about it. And so, these silly songs, I just like start like, singing to myself these silly songs to just create like new reference point into my system. And how that's evolved is it's just like, anytime I eat anything, I put my hands over my food and I'm literally infusing it, and I sing to my food and I bliss it out, and I like that everything that goes in my body, it's my cells are transmitting all of it to the highest vibration of love and light. You are joy, you are bliss. And I'm like, oh, your magic and your rainbows and your butterflies. And I'm literally like in like bliss bombing, everything that I put in my system.
Yes.
And, as I give it back to the earth, as I, compost it out and I send it out, it's like, thank you, thank you, thank you. And, so it's like, as you're taking a shower, are you infusing every aspect of it with light? Are you touching your body and loving every inch of yourself with that, like that juiciness of that all that's available there? See, there's all these ranges of gratitude and appreciation and love, and seeing what we have. We have this beautiful body that is our vehicle and our vessel. Now you compare that to a lower vibrational frequency of get in, do my thing, shower off, do my hair, or, maybe judging my body in any way or anything like that. Like, what's available in the same experience is to completely like, oh, I love this water, this glorious water. Thank you, thank you, me. Oh, I love my beautiful face. Thank you, face. I love my arms. And that's infusing. That's so I feel like that's a reference point for people of how do I begin to infuse everything with love. Is, can I take in each experience? Can I learn to, if I saw this out of love, how would that look? If I heard, any story that comes up, anything out of love, what would that look like? What would that be if I saw beyond illusion and saw it all through its purpose was for love, to teach and allow me to see this? And we can actually begin to operate from a place of how do I transmute and learn to put out the frequency of love to all things, and then take an action on that. That's why I said, like, message someone if you feel, oh, like I felt resistant to them. What do I get to heal there and own within? And then how do I alchemize that and heal that relationship to allow it to be divine love and light? Because it's just showing up for you to see what gets to be alchemized in your system and in yourself, and what's available in relationships. Otherwise, it's going to keep showing up for someone else. So these things are all beautiful opportunities to go. I love the one of the greatest support systems to myself is I always just go back to energy, because energy never lies. Truth feels light and sets you free. Lies feel heavy and limit you. So if it feels heavy, if it feels dense, if you feel yourself contract, if you feel yourself shrug away, or like, and again, the thought is heavy. Anything is like, oh, okay, wait, let me breathe into that and let me expand. This is calling me to expand. And so we can look at energy of anything that we're doing and go, is it contraction or is it expansion? Is it unity or is it separation? Is it inclusion or is it exclusion? And we can become so clear in the energy of even the slightest micro alignments, because I am fucking so aware of the micro. The micro is gold. The micro is like the tiniest things that people want to bypass is where all the gold is. It's that tiny little micro of you just feel the inkling of energy that's off. You had one quick little thought and you ignored it. all the tiny little things are the micro. And when we see what's happening in the micro, we see how it's operating everywhere. And when we just focus on the micro each moment we catch it, literally the macro expands and changes. And that's why people can shift and change, and there are no timelines, there's no process. Like, it can be an experience right now when we're just choosing to lean into what's in this very moment and go, is this love, or is this suffering? Like, what energy am I applying here? What energy am I giving out? What was my thought? What was my words? What was my vision of this thing? Oh, okay. Well, if that's the energy here, then I know that that's what I'm blasting out into the field. No wonder that's exactly what I'm going to receive back. So we can catch it, and we can begin to go, all right, what's here for me? Let me breathe into this and alchemize this and take it through that emotional alchemy. Because emotional alchemy is to go to the depths with it, to actually really be present with it and feel it, not just go, oh, that's okay. Yeah. That's, not bypass it, but to lean into it. And so that's what we really have the opportunity for us to do. And I hope people can catch these tools of integration, because that is where it will shift and change for you. Versus the idea, they can see the idea and look at you and go like, whoa, this example, this glorious being but you have been doing the journey of the micro alignments to live and operate from this place, where then it's like, I'm cleansed and I'm clear, and this is how I see people in the world, and this is how I operate, and I feel, in this place. And when we come to that level of alignment, that's when manifestation is so easy. So many people struggle to manifest because vibrations aren't in alignment. So it's like, we might say one thing, but our system in our cells is vibrating something else, in a lower level of consciousness, in which a lot of the laws and the ways we've been operating in our human species now has been to, say we want one thing, but do the opposite. And that's kind of the battle between the inner and the outer, where it's like, hey, without, it's not showing up. And it's because inside it's not in alignment either. And so when we bring all parts of us into alignment, those operating systems, as I said, we start to become aware of what each aspect of us is operating from. That's when alignment becomes, and manifestation becomes so easy, because manifestation is simply being in the vibration and alignment to it, which is to be in the wholeness, being in the fulfillment, being in the satisfaction, which appreciation, again, is one of the greatest ways that we can just practice seeing things through those eyes and being through appreciation. So even if people start to say thank you to every fucking thing, I say thank you all day long.
Totally.
Literally everything.
Yes.
I step outside, I'm like, thank you, sun, you're so glorious. Oh, you beautiful trees. Thank you, trees. Oh, I love you, the birds. I'm like, hi, beautiful. Thank you for flying for me. And I'm just like in constant awe and wonder, as you said. So when we start to practice seeing life through this lens and being in appreciation for what is there, accepting what is there, these are some of the simple tools people can begin to do to bring their systems into more alignment, because appreciation is the key to where you are to where you want to be, because it is shifting all things to that higher vibration. So that's just one of the tools that people can implement now, is to infuse, like you said, everything in with love, and to fully be in appreciation for each thing in the moment. There's so much here.
Oh yes, that's so good. It's the energetic of amplification, like you said, is literally leaning in. So when I was rewiring my own neural pathways, because I came from a depth of trauma and physical violence and abuse, and I had to rewrite my entire genome from the ground up. And when I was practicing shifting that story, I remember when I would have any kind of story that was not additive to life in any way. So appreciation is the master amplifier, is what I call it, because it will super accelerate our creations, our manifestation, our health, our well-being, our thrival. It will instantly, it's just so powerful at reorienting the quantum field. And when I was retraining my mind, I would just show up in every moment, and I would just go, thank you, God, thank you, love, thank you, life, God, thank you, love, thank you. If any kind of like you said, catching those micro moments when I would notice, because it fell out of resonance with my system. I'm like, but it was so built in, it was so habitual to go in certain directions, and to look at what the potentially like the worst case scenario outcome was, and all these things, and so I had to literally just I had to etch. Sister, I had to etch new pathway.
That's the journey, though. That's it. Because everyone's got a story and a pathway, and it is reintegrating a new neural pathway, and then that becomes your norm, and that's why it's normal to you now. And so for people to hear that, okay, it might feel out of norm for me, it might feel uncomfortable, and that might feel out of ease to like, oh, I got to practice seeing it this way and doing this way. And when we just practice these simple little tools and ways of being, then it becomes like, oh, I do see the beauty everywhere versus I didn't see any beauty everywhere. And like, thank you was such a great way to integrate that. That was one of the ways that I etched my way through it as well, was just like, thank you for this. Thank you for this. Thank you for this. Thank you for this. Even with the staff, everything, it's like, thank you, thank you, thank you. And everyone's like, oh, this is horrible. And I'm like, I'm so grateful. Like, this is obviously for my greatest good. And this is cleansing me. And that's what's really available in there. Because we just know that everything, the story and the lie and the separation, the illusion would be, I mean, the greatest lie and illusion that we bought into is separation from ourselves as source. And so buying into separation. And so when we actually recognize that what's available is our wholeness, there's never too much in our wholeness. There's never too much in our wholeness. And that's, again, why I resonate with you on like, hey, can I speak into all these things that people might be like, what? You're out there hanging out with a grasshopper in your hand and you're having like telepathic communications. So yep. Because, hey, that's what's available, And so it's like, there's no too much in my wholeness. And if it triggers people, it's simply to, triggering that aspect of them. It's like, whoa, can I be with all of that? And can I recognize and see all those aspects of me, whether they're ready for it or not? So it's like, it's beautiful for us to know that the journey for us is beginning to practice living moment by moment. That is the way that heart intelligence, as you were talking about, aligning our omni mind and bringing that together. It's like also to come together to our heart intelligence in that magnified field, because our heart is 500,000 times more powerful than any single thought. And so when we align ourselves to our heart frequencies, that is like we manifest with such fucking ease, such fucking ease. And it's so easy when we're in alignment. So this is, in a way, we could say this is a motivator for people to go, oh, the more I lean into anything that doesn't feel good within, and anything that I see from without, just like you did, in every single moment, it's like, is this creating my suffering or is this creating my expansion? Is this allowing me to step into my wholeness and all that I am, or is this something opposite of that? And when we just see that that's operating, how do I bring that back to a different aspect of myself, or allow myself to play in the playground of those different possibilities? And you etched your way, and then it becomes how you be, and it becomes your norm, which is, it becomes effortless. And that's really what we're made to experience, is a level of new earth that is in that level of experience with each other, that level of bliss and joy and love and light and acceptance and compassion. It's like, wow, that's what we have available. And that's already here. It is already here. You're experiencing that every single day. And the more of us that choose into that, and this is why we're in this beautiful, glorious cleansing and clearing to like de-story, deconstruct, unlearn, unprogram, to allow ourselves to build the foundations of our truth and our remembrance and our divinity in the way that we actually alchemize and just be that frequency in the field. We have this available now. So I am so grateful for you bringing all those aspects.
I have such a depth of love and appreciation for you. Are one of the most, I would micro hyper calibrated beings. I'm like, is there, like, how do I even begin to describe like what I see?
I don't think anyone's ever described me that way. I like it.
Just to the millimicro. I mean, you're like, how there's just billions of shifts per second. You're just in them all. You're just in them all, and you're shifting them all, and you're aware of them all, and you're able to quantum calibrate and compute and synthesize and explain. One of the things that I absolutely love about you is that you are so multidimensional, but you are also so deeply practical at the same time, and it's brilliant.
Yeah.
And you're so aware of all of the little micro adjustments and calibrations that are happening, and you transmit them so beautifully and eloquently for people to really receive and integrate into their own experience, and to really relate to, like, oh yeah, yep, and you touch even just in a single sentence. In a single sentence, you just take someone through an entire journey of alchemy. An entire journey from start to finish. You're like, this is where we started, and this is the glory of the final product. And you just guide them through the whole thing, and to just be on that thread constantly. Like you just, I mean, I'm just going to amplify you in the field. Like, I'm going to amplify, like, everybody on the planet needs to be aware of you.
Well, and we're just reflecting the divinity that we are. And I so appreciate that, love. That's been a part of my journey. That is the gifts that I tapped into is I'm like on the rooftop and I can see every fucking thing. And that's why I like working with people. I can see the layer of micro alignments from everything. And it's just part of what I receive. I can just see it all and feel it all and receive it all. And somehow systematically, there is no time and space to be like, oh, I got to track that. It's like, I'm seeing it all at once. And it's beautiful to make things simple, right? To bring what is available as well as like, all right, how do I bring it into the now? And that's part of what I'm so passionate about is how do we bring the integration in and how do we bring the embodiment into it that we all can start to alchemize and calibrate and feel in our hearts this awakening, this opening, because we're all just, divinely desiring to have that reawakening or that remembrance of our love and our liberation and our light and our truth and our wholeness and our healing. And that's all we ever have been. And it's available in every aspect of us. So that is such a glorious, beautiful description, which I so appreciate and receive that fully and just receiving that into my whole system, that beautiful reflection from you. And it's beautiful that we get to exemplify that for others as well. Those new reference points.
Yeah, so stunning. And one of the things before we hop off here, you said, I'm standing on the rooftop and so I can see all the micro, and you get to see because you're standing at the most pure and pristine filter that there is all of those little places and spaces where the field is recoding and, all the sifting and sorting between data and storylines and potentials and possibilities and frames and all of this. And so I think that's a profound stance to invite people into, is to open into the expanse of all that we are and to take that eagle-eyed view so that we can see clearly all of those layers. And so that's quite exquisite. That is fascinating too, that the micro actually comes from being so calibrated at the macro. And it has been a tremendous honor to have you. And I am so excited for so much more play and so many more activations and so just the experience of you. And so excited to see what that unfolds as. And so honored to know you, so honored to have you on our planet here at this time. Like, thank you for the grace and the glory and the just sheer love and beauty and abundance of your presence here. You are a powerhouse star being, and I love you so dearly.
I'm breathing all that in. Thank you. I received that.
Yeah. I mean, you are, because I see you so fully.
And I also know that you see all those aspects of me because you are being that and living it, and you are embracing that fully embodied. Like even, as we began this conversation, like I said, how you described witnessing my essence before we even ever got to connect. It was like, it was like, you got it. I could tell that you got it because you have been through the same journey, because not a lot of people can see all these aspects until they've been through the journey. So I fully recognize being recognized as recognizing you as well and all that you've been through to become this glorious reflection that you are. And talk about, like, as you say that I share things eloquently. I'm just like, I'm kind of like in this, like a goddess crush, like, it's been like pussy all lit up and everything, like, oh, like listening to the frequency of your words and the essence of your being and all that you're exemplifying in your great glory and gifts. And that's what's so beautiful. We all get to come together and share in our gifts. There is like no one or the other. There is nothing but divine bliss, and that what we all get to share and express together. And so I'm so blissed out just being in your presence and your essence and being here with you and having these beautiful conversations to awaken our inner standing as to the remembrance of all that we are. So thank you for that, and all your language and all the codes that you bring in as well.
Oh, thank you so much. I can't wait until the glorious moment when I get to just wrap you in a hug and spin around like children.
I will receive that and be super excited.
Yeah. I love you. Is there anything else that you would love to? Oh yeah, if you want to just express where people can connect in with you, that would be amazing.
Yeah. Well, daily stuff is Facebook and Instagram and YouTube. We have all the channels and the ways that we're always just sharing there. Right now, most of what we're sharing is all people getting free access to again, what I've been called to share, which is we're doing the Peace for the Planet, the free group, which is 7 days of light code activations, as well as embodiment tools and breath work and the laws of spirituality, the integration practices. So really, I was called to give like that foundation for people to have all aspects to start to implement. So that's a Facebook group for free. And then in that, we have several trainings, the joy training I mentioned, that people can access in there. My show, The Awakened Being, Conversations Create Change. If they go to marcilocke.com/show, that's the easiest way to access, but it's on all platforms. There's 3 shows that I did around this time, like the coronavirus, the gift of our healing. There's one about, uncertainty to our greatest liberation. It was like the Q&A open mic call that I did, breaking down and helping people see this alchemization process as we go, like you said, in one sentence, like, oh, I was here, now I see actually the light, and I'm over here, and I totally feel that bliss and joy. So that hopefully can really support people. And then I just released one this last week on ultimate alignment to our healing. So that's accessible. Thinking what else? I mean, everything else we have. There's the Ultimate Life of Having It All meditation for free as well. That's already in the group, so most people can access. We put everything there, so it's easy that they can just have all those access points. Mm-hmm. And then right now we've got everything on my site for 50% off, like with a code PEACENOW50, I think is what it is, just for any. Because as people are diving in, it's like, oh, money's my shit. I get to learn to alchemize and align to absolute abundance and worthiness, money medicine, or awaken relationships, or unconscious commitment. So there's lots of things there to support. There's activations, meditations, but it's whatever we desire everyone to receive tools right now to be able to integrate and embody these greater ways of being. So hopefully between all those ways, whether you're in a place where come join the free Peace for the Planet and get the activations, and our intention with that, my biggest call for people that feel called to that is that the more people that are experiencing these activations together, again, it's a recoding and a recalibration of our systems, and then it's a massive transmission out to the planet. So it's a lot different, like I said, than just a group coming together and doing a meditation. There's a lot more involved in it. That's why I see what's available. So my desire is hopefully that as many people as possible can be a part of that experience at once. And again, peace, for the planet starts with peace within. So again, I want anyone, it doesn't matter if they shared or not, or they've got more people where they can join us at the same time, they have access to it. And we want them to be able to go through these tools because you're creating peace within that will create peace for the planet. And my vision and what I saw is the more of us that can join together in this experience of recalibrating and activation, and then spreading those codes out through the frequency in the field, is the sooner and the easier that we step into the newer. So that's what I'm focused on fully with all of my gifts and energy and attention in my divine assignment right now, and just grateful for also just these beautiful interactions that we get to have like this, that shares this information and shares the frequency. It's not just information, it's embodiment, and it's learning to embody these frequencies and to be in that rainbow light body and into all the remembrance that we are. So thanks for letting me play with you, sister, and for asking me to come, have playtime with you.
Yes. Thank you so much. And thank you for all that you give and for all that you provide for everybody. It's profound. It's profound. And everything is so jam-packed with just epic Epicurean wisdom just all around. And so thank you for the fullness of your transmission and all that you are and all that you give and all that you be. And in each and every moment, an honor and a joy to play with you always. We're going to have a ball.
We already are.
We already are. I know.
I was with my little boys, we used to say can't wait, and then I realized that was just speaking into waiting. And so we always say I'm so excited, or I'm experiencing the love and the bliss that we are now. And that's truly I feel so blissed out being with you now. So super grateful for this experience in the now, choosing to be in the now, and all the glorious experiences that we get to continue to receive, all in divine timing, as life is this glorious adventure that the universe just brings